welcome to another episode of Aloha Authentic with Kamakapili, Hawaii's only TV show where we feature our own artists, cultural practitioners, kupuna, and community members around our islands to capture their mo'olelo, capture their ʻike, their knowledge, and share it with you in the comfort of your own home, in the comfort of your own hand. Nowadays, everything is a cell phone. So we're so blessed, very, very blessed today to have Uncle Umi Kai participate and share his knowledge out of his busy schedule to share a little bit of where he comes from, his knowledge of Hawaiian weaponry and Hawaiian martial arts, and share it with all of us so we can just dive right into it, because of course these half-an-hour shows go by super fast. So first of all, mahalo, Uncle. Very much appreciate for
mahalo you.
Allow me to be a part of your home at least for the next half an hour and to give our viewers a chance to listen to your experiences. You know, when I hear about Uncle Umi Kai, we hear about Hawaiian weaponry, implements, lua or martial arts. So if you could just share a little bit of background of where you come from and how you were raised to get into this position.
Born and raised in Kaimuki. My father's from Waihinu, Mokuokeawe, and my mother's from Waimea, Mokuokeawe, but they moved to Oahu after their fourth child, and I'm number 6 out of 7. But I started doing Hawaiian crafts, if you want to call it crafts, or implements, when I was in high school at Kaimuki and in my junior year. And mostly because I'm a hands-on type student. Don't read books, don't associate or learn well from reading. I have to do hands-on. So in the wood shop class that I took, the teacher, after the basics were done, allowed me to make anything I wanted. And I had remembered an object that I saw on an uncle's wall that I really was impressed with, and it was a leo mano. But some reason it disappeared after his death, and so I made my own. From a piece of the mango tree in our backyard. So after making that, and then moving to Anchorage, Alaska, in my part of my senior year, more than half of it, and the questions that came up. You know, there are a lot of Hawaiians up there, but still, even the Hawaiians are asking, well, what about this in Hawaii? What about that? And it just piqued my curiosity even more to make other things and learn more about the culture. So I came back and graduated and started to continue making crafts, making implements, and it was Mrs. Keawe that really helped me push that through. She was a director with the Parks and City of Honolulu Parks and Recreations, and she had a shop in Diamond Head, the old Dillingham estate. And my wife and I, at that time girlfriend, went down there to just check it out. And she makes Hawaiian implements. Anybody who wants to come by, you can make whatever you want. And after the first 2 Saturdays, she asked me, "Oh, can you just teach them instead?" Because I got the knack, right? So I started doing that, and it continued from there. Now, when it comes to making weapons, the first one again was that leo mano, but really didn't make too many weapons until I started to take lua, and that was in 1994 through a class at the Bishop Museum. They had offered the first lua class since probably Kalakaua time. And my wife had seen a poster about it, and she knew I was interested in weaponry, and so I went and attended the class, and I've been there ever since. It's Pākuia Lua. So that experience and that type of that work that I've been doing with all the implements, whether it be for hula, be for mea'ai, be for weaponry, mea kaua, just heightens my awareness about the Hawaiian culture and our history, because you learn a lot more than just the implement itself. I had to learn how to make cordage. I learn how to select proper woods for the proper function and proper designs. So all of that ties in with not just making an implement, but understanding the process of getting to that implement.
So you share a little bit about Lua and how it was vanished for decades since Kalakaua era. Can you share a little bit about why or how that had been?
Well, as you know, and most people know, Lua is the Hawaiian martial art taught only to the ali'i. And you had to be selected ali'i too, not just everyone. And when the missionaries came in and the unification of all the islands had occurred, there was no need for the wars anymore or fighting. And so the missionaries deemed the Lua fighters as being unnecessary, but also something deadly. And so they banned it. And so it went underground. And for the most part, it kind of died, except for some families still continued it, and there were no schools per se anymore. During Kalakaua's time, he brought back the Hula, but he also brought back the Lua. In the secret society, there were maybe a dozen or less that brought it back. And fortunately, Mr. Ken, Kamehameha School's teacher, was able to capture that and record it and teach it again to 6 individuals. He started off with 12, and then it boiled down to 6. And from that is where we get our genealogy for the Lua practitioner. We come from the line of Charles Ken down to Richard Peglinoan and Moses Kalao Kalani. So we still practice that today.
I know of some aunties who share that they participate in Lua. Is that a traditional thing? Were women warriors back in ancient times?
Yeah. The women participated in warfare. They participated fully or partly, and by that I mean they could be support behind their husband or behind a warrior, picking up weapons and handing it to him, or protecting their back. There's a story about Kavelo almost being slain by the giant Kawahoa on Kauai when he went to help his father reclaim the island from cousins and others who were trying to overtake. And he was knocked down and just going to be slain by the giant Kawahoa with his big, large neva, when his wife came from behind and lassoed the neva with her pikoi and held it back long enough for Kavelo to stand up and slay the giant. So yeah, women are important. Not only then, but today.
Even more so.
Even more so.
We see different cultural practices intertwined with each other. So, for example, like martial arts and Hula. I've heard that Hula actually stemmed from martial arts and how that was their means of practicing while they were off of the battlefield. Can you share a little bit about that, or how martial arts really intertwines with other practices?
Yeah. When you say martial arts, you're meaning Lua in particular, in this case. And depending on who you talk to, which came first, Lua or Hula, chicken or the egg. I think most appreciate that there is a tie-in and that the trucks are loud. That the tie-in with Lua and Hula is very closely related, and both have aspects of martial arts, and both have aspects of fluidity, like the Olapa dancers. And you need to practice both. I don't mean practice Hula and practice Lua. I mean being flexible, the ku and the hina. You have to have both elements. Everybody has ku and hina, ku being the rigid and the stiff, and the hina being the flexible and fluid. And everybody has both of them, and you need to find the balance for yourself. Doesn't mean 50-50. It means a percentage of each in order to make yourself whole. And then, given circumstances or situations, you would change that balance. So during a fight, you would be developing and raising your ku elements higher than your hina. talking to a child or to your wahine, you would be using more hina to better grasp their understanding. So I think that lua came first out of the necessity of warfare, and hula had developed as a means to soften that. But again, it all depends on who you talk to.
So I'm glad that you brought up ku and hina. And do you think that understanding of that duality of the energy of male and female is a Hawaiian thing, or do you think other people around the world understand that?
Ku and hina is similar to yin and yang.
Okay.
Yin and yang is similar to many other cultures. So yes, I think similarities across the old cultures, not the new ones, are evident and prevalent throughout the world. Without that kind of understanding of balance, the old cultures had a hard time surviving.
You know, you're so when I hear other kupuna talking about you, they kind of recognize you as one of the most recognized practitioners throughout the Pacific, and you look surprised by that.
You must be talking to my mother or something.
But I mean, so I'm sure that you've been talking story and you've built relationships with other indigenous people around the world and finding out about their culture and how it relates to Hawaiian culture and vice versa. So when it comes to lua or martial arts or weaponry and implements, how do you see Hawaiian martial arts or Hawaiian implements compared to other indigenous cultures?
I think in generality, it's important to understand that we're not as unique as people think we are. Yes, we are unique as a people here in the islands, isolated. Closest other landmass would be 3,000 miles away. So, and we're unique in other aspects. But we're similar in our cultural understanding of life, and in that I mean that people how can I say it? It's like are we the only ones that had a shark tooth type weapon? No other Polynesians had it, but also that weapon is the same design and same type of function as a metal sword. So those similarities you have to consider. It's the difference in natural resources. We didn't have metal. So in place of the metal, we use the shark's teeth, or we use stone, or we find a wood that's so hard that it's likened to a metal club. Yeah. So I think the similarities are there. We're not as unique as we think. I like to think we're unique as a people, not as implements.
Yeah. So with those implements, I mean, sharing we don't have metal, when we didn't have metal, how is it with working with these different types of implements? I mean, looking at carving a stone, for example, seems like you need so much patience, and that's I think a lot of times, especially the younger generations, that thing is so fast we don't have the patience. So how is it that in your perspective, working with these different types of natural elements, did that contribute to the Hawaiian people as a person?
Again, the uniqueness of our location and the resources we had, you adapt. And if a culture doesn't adapt, culture doesn't survive. And the Hawaiians adapted very well. And so when working with stone, you have to work with the mentality of stone. You wouldn't use a wooden object to shape the stone. You would use another stone or something just as hard, if not harder. So picking the different materials would dictate the type of work you would be doing. With the stones, because it's so related to the earth, that it brings out a different value. The wood related to the earth as well, but It has a little more general overtone to it, except for certain woods that would be designated for religious type ceremonies, lama for example. You would pay more attention to that type of wood. When you're doing, making an implement that involves inlaying shark teeth, the niho has to be selected for the purpose that you're going to use it. And they didn't just select the niho for the niho's sake. And the niho was selected for a mano that was gotten for food and for the skin as well as the teeth. You have to use all elements in order to make it proper.
So I know, like in an aumakua sense, the shark is to some families their spiritual guardian. So, is it that by using pieces or the whole shark in the sense of applying it to other implements and stuff, is there a pilikia with that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and a lot of people ask me that question every time I'm doing the presentation. And this is my mana'o from what I've learned, my experiences. Every family has their own mana'o on it, but an aumakua has a name, an aumakua has a marking, and you need to be able to feed that aumakua in order to call it yours, aumakua. And a lot of people will say, well, the mano is my family aumakua, and that's fine. And whatever their kupuna said it was, it is. But can they today identify which one it is, the marking on it, and can they feed that aumakua, whether it be a pueo, whether it be a mano? And if they cannot, then I would say that you used to have an aumakua that was a mano. With the intermarriages, you may have 3 or 4 aumakua within your family now. But the practice of actually feeding the aumakua is probably gone. Yeah. The mano situation, a lot of people say, and that's the most popular one, they say, well, you cannot kill any shark because that's my aumakua. But it's usually only one mano. It's one particular one, and it's the reef type shark, not the pelagic ones out, the tiger or the great white or hammerhead and such. That is an aumakua. Those are not aumakuas from what I've been taught. So if you say my aumakua is in Waikiki or Laie, okay, that's where your aumakua resides. Okay, so if the Laie person comes to Waikiki and goes and plays without fear of any mano attacking, they're under false pretense. That's my understanding.
That's interesting because just about a year or 2 ago, I had an uncle who shared the same thing, and I never
What?
knew. Just growing up, we always assumed that it was all sharks.
Yeah.
But I was corrected as a little bit learning about my genealogy that we have our aumakua shark is off of Makena, I believe, on Maui, and he just tells stories of his great-grandfather, great-grand-uncle would always go out and feed the shark, talk with the shark, play with the shark, and it's just like, that spiritual connection that we only read about or hear about. We don't have that anymore, and I think we're so disconnected now that I think we just strive to get back to that. I mean, you look at it nowadays and people consider them the cuckoo uncle going out and talking to whatever, but it's like they have X-Men powers. I don't know what it is, but I just think their owls are so connected with the elements around them, and nowadays I think we just take that for granted a little bit.
We've lost a lot of that, if not all of that. And I'm sure some viewers are going to say, well, I still got or I don't believe that, all the sharks are mine or all the pueo are mine. But again, it's just my mana'o, my experiences that I'm sharing.
So with all of this practice, lua and your implements, there must be a spiritual connection to what you're working with. I hear some people when they're harvesting pohaku or whatever that it's not you choosing the pohaku, it's the pohaku choosing you. Is there that protocol when it comes to weaponry?
Well, when it comes to weaponry, depending on which one you're making and what material you're going to be using, the material itself can call to you. Like if I had a piece of wood here and I'm looking at it and it's just laying there, and then all of a sudden I say, oh, I think I'm going to make a leo mano with that because it has the design and it has a flaw in it that I like. Not all flaws are bad. Some flaws are great because it gives character to the entire piece. And then I finally see within that piece of lao that I want to make a leo mano, or I want to make a pahoa, or I want to make a ʻike kuku. Okay, because there's no flaws and it's all smooth. So, and the grains are going in a direction that makes it easier to make. So I think that the spirituality of the piece goes both ways. You need to seek, and then the piece needs to tell you what it can be made into. I'm not as spiritual as a lot of people, so they probably have other experiences that are more spiritual than mine. I see mine function in a functional spirit. You know, what is functional? How do I get it? Where do I get it? And once I see a raw material that I like, I make sure that I thank the powers to be that I'm able to get it, and then I make sure I clean it and then bring it back. Simple stuff, but I think it's important.
So you make implements.
More respectful.
Yeah. So you make implements for many people, many museums, organizations, and such.
Yeah.
What type of kuleana do you think that gives you for being recognized to be this practitioner of lua as well as weaponry? What type of kuleana do you feel that you need to stand up to?
That's a hard question, because personally, personally, the kuleana for me is really not so much. The kuleana aspect more centers on my ohana. If my name is on an object in a public place, I want to make sure that I don't disgrace them. Yeah, so I try to make it as nicely as possible. I don't think I'm the best. I think that I make my objects functional, and people will say, well, it's very artistic and beautiful art, but I don't see myself as an artist. And again, there are a lot of other, for the lack of a better term, artisans or implement makers that are a lot more refined. I make mine functional.
I think that's a good point, because I was taking couple class one time, and I bought my dad this. Had one shark. I tell him I don't know the name, but had one shark tooth on it. And it was a cutter, and I bought him for like Father's Day or something. And he always had it on the wall. And I started taking couple class, and we needed to start to strip our vauke. So it's always been there. So I took it and I used it. And then my dad found out I used it. He got so mad. And then I was thinking, but you know what? What is the point of having something like that, and you just have it hanging on the wall the whole time?
That's why I don't make them and put them in shadow boxes, because it's supposed to be used. And that's a niho'oki is what you're talking about. So the single tooth utility knife, it's not a weapon, it's a utility knife used for stripping down the wauke, for carving in the ie kuku lines, for carving the umeke from the ipu, carving in those special designs all over, and gutting open a fish or shaving with. That's the niho'oki. Very valuable tool, and every kapa maker and every house should have one.
See, Dad, told you.
Yeah, and usable. We can always replace the niho.
What, with everything you've gone through and all your experience and knowledge, to you, that simple word of aloha, what does that mean to you?
And you said it correctly, the simple word of aloha. Okay, people over exaggerate it, that Hawaii, the only place that has the Aloha Spirit, and we should continue the Aloha Spirit. We have the word aloha, but every other place has the same spirit. It's a love spirit, right? You can find it anywhere you go, except we have a word for it, and we call it aloha. I gave a talk at the Visitor Center during a conference and told them that all they have to do is, in the visitor industry, use the word aloha. And that in itself will constitute a good warm feeling. When you answer the phone, it's aloha, I'm blah, blah, blah. Okay, greeting someone with aloha, you're going to feel that whole sense of kindness out of giving, but just by the use of the word aloha. It's not the spirit is not unique to Hawaii. The word is. Yeah.
So, if anybody wants to find out more, or kind of get themselves into learning about weaponry, is there any place that you would recommend for them to check out?
Yeah, everybody else. No, they can contact me via my website.
What's your website?
KaiCompany.com. One word, Kai Company, and company spelled with a K, not a C.
Okay.
So KaiCompany.com. It links into my my email. Keep in mind, I don't have a computer, and I don't know how to use that website, so it's a little bit dated. But a friend of mine made it for me, and I greatly appreciate it. And that's how people, the collectors of Hawaiian implements, contact me. It's not just weaponry; it could be anything else. Fish hooks, bone fish hooks. I make them functional for actual use. Okay. Use them in Mokumanamana and Nihoa and Kaneohe Bay and Marquesas. Wow. So it's something that, again, I'm just trying to practice functionality in what you make. Doesn't matter what you make, as long as it's functional.
Well, right on, Uncle. I know, again, this went by super fast, but I really appreciate you taking the
good.
time for talking story. Again, if you have want to find out more information, KaiCompany.com, and again, the K in company is not a C. If you want to check out any past episodes of Aloha Authentic, in case you missed any, make sure you check out our website at alohaAuthentic.org, and also catch us every Thursday morning on KHON2 News at about 8:40 as we're continuing to go around the streets sharing more mo'olelo and history about our beautiful land and history here in Hawaii. And keep in mind, every episode of Aloha Authentic airs the first Fridays of every month at 6:30 and 6:30 p.m. and replays itself every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. both on Olelo Channel 53. So until next time, aloha and a hui hou.
Aloha.